Well, looked like for a moment we were gonna have 30 more minutes of soccer on this Thanksgiving special, but in the end, in a game where it was really a game of two halves, where the Rapids kind of dominate the first half, but the Timbers eventually gain control in the second half. It was the Timbers having the experience in the playoffs and another defender scoring late in the game to prevail their team to move on into the next round. Although it definitely comes with a price for the Portland Timbers, with them moving on into the conference final, and we'll definitely talk about why exactly that is the case. Now, in the first half, I thought that was probably the fullest that Dick's Sporting Goods Park had been looked this season, and it's unsurprising because this is the first playoff game that the Rapids gets to play at home since 2016, and since this is a Thanksgiving game, you know that the stadium is going to be well packed. And obviously, the not only the fact that the Rapids fans showed up in this game, but certainly they were bringing the noise. I mean, this was probably the loudest I've heard Dick's Sporting Goods Park this season, and the Rapids. I will say that they're not definitely not one of the most rowdiest fans in the league, but this was definitely a game where they wanted prove people wrong, and that they definitely tried their best to bring the energy in this game and trying to hope that their team can move on into the next round. But early on in the game, I thought Colorado was on the front foot. Trusty headed wide from the corner in the 5th minute, and by the way, he was wide open in the back post. And all of a sudden, you know how I said in the preview where I was very concerned coming into this game for the Portland Timbers of how they would deal with those set piece opportunities that the Rapids had, and yeah, that first look definitely did not look promising. And I even wrote Timbers already have problems on the set pieces, and I thought the Timbers were probably going to give up a goal or two from the set pieces. Now, to the Timbers' credit, they definitely done much better their job in terms of those crosses that was coming in, and also those set piece opportunities that the Rapids was trying to get. And I guess coming into this game, it was pretty clear that the Rapids' plan in this game is that they're just going to cross to death and hope that eventually that Timbers defense is going to crack in terms of those balls coming into the box, because we know that this Timbers defense does struggle in terms of that. Now, they did also mention the fact that the altitude and the fact that it could be an issue for the Timbers, and I thought it was definitely the issue. I mean, they looked like they were a step slow, and it's not surprising that that is the case. Consider it's only 4 days since the Timbers were able to beat Minnesota at home, and when you play in a game in altitude and you only had like 4 days to prepare, that's not really enough time to try to get things going. And this is also where Colorado, you would think that they would take advantage of it with them, playing in altitude, but also training in altitude coming into this game. They would have the upper edge of it. I also want to mention the fact that the shadow on the pitch, yeah, it was very brutal. And what's is kind of a thing that wasn't going to be a problem in this game. And I feel like people should have noticed. I mean, when you have a 2:30 the kickoff like what we have in this one, the shadows is going to be brutal, and it definitely looked very brutal in the first half, especially the TV broadcast, where I know a lot of people said that the Fox broadcast was absolutely terrible, and I do agree in some point, but I think a lot of that has to do with the shadows, and it's just that it was brutal to see how it was really kind of messing with the contrast of the recording of this game. But that being said, the Fox broadcast was definitely not something that will give people hope that they can watch their game again, because knowing the fact that this is a Thanksgiving game, I'm assuming a lot of people probably tune into this one. That definitely is not a good look. That if you want to give people that have never watched MLS and give them a first impression, especially in the playoffs, this broadcast probably was not the best first impression that they should maybe watch more MLS games on Fox. But in the 12th minute, Acosta did try out to curl one, but that one goes high. Before Baji had a free header that goes straight to Clark, and again, the Timbers, they really struggle on set piece opportunity, and Baji again was finding himself open in the box, and he hits that one straight to Clark. But you can definitely see that at that point I was thinking it was just a matter of time that the Rapids was going to get that opening goal, and it's going to come from a set piece. Possession also was 70-30 in favor of Colorado, and as much as I know the Timbers are a team that is not known to basically have possession, and also they love to play with their bread and butter kind of way, which is just trying to sit back and trying to counter the other team. Yeah, they were not having any success whatsoever in the first half. Like, the Rapids really suffocate the Timbers in terms of any chances when the Timbers can go on to the break. And in some way, the Timbers were just getting pinned back with how the first 15 minutes of this game goes. In the 21st minute, there was a huge shout for a penalty from Colorado as Marc-Anthony Kaye thought that he was brought down by Char. I thought that was a good call to not give a penalty, because I definitely think that Marc-Anthony Kaye kind of embellished that a little bit, and in many ways he was trying to trail his leg, trying to maybe draws the penalty here. And we've seen before where referee, they can get baited by an attacker trying to draw their legs or dangle their legs at a defender to kind of draw contact, but this referee was not having it, and I think it was a good call that was not a penalty. Then Asprilla with really the Timbers' first chance of the game, but he missed wide from long range. So that shot also kind of signaled that we are not going to have another game where an away team does not register a single shot, as that's the first shot that the Timbers had, albeit it wasn't on goal. In the 27th minute, Rosenberry then fired one high from 20 yards out, and then Clark denied Bassett as Colorado was really pressing for the opener. Blanco then fired it high from 32 yards out in the 35th minute, and despite the fact that they were a little bit under siege, Portland was starting to get into this game. Like, as the half goes, they started to kind of get themselves some foothold into the game, and again, a lot of that may be due to the fact that, again, the altitude, and they were not kind of used to it for the first 30 minutes, but as soon as they started to get used to it, it started to kind of wake up a little bit. They were definitely getting themselves into this game. Though that being said, the Rapids almost got up 1-0, and this is definitely going to be a save that if there is one big reason that the Timbers, of course, won this game, of course, the goal that they scored late in the game, but if there's another big reason why they won this game, it was the save. I mean, this was an incredible save from Steve Clark, absolutely robbing Baji, who had a point-blank free header from 4 yards out, but Clark somehow, in some way, was able to deny him there. And, it also come in a very important time, because if the Rapids were up 1-0, all of a sudden they have the momentum, and it looked like the Timbers were going to be in for a long afternoon in Colorado. Now, there was some chirping between both of these teams as the half kind of ends. A lot of that has to do with Abubakar decided to kind of fight and, well, not really fight, but more like have some chirping with a couple of those Timbers players down the stretch. But we do head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. Now, in the second half, this is when it looked like it was all over for the Timbers, because Sebastian Blanco, their golden goose, had to be subbed off with a hamstring injury. And, I was always wondered, in that game where he looked like he suffered a hamstring injury against Minnesota right before the half. And, I know that he kind of continued for the rest of the game, but you just wondered, did that also maybe had some effect in terms of the injury that he has here? Because immediately when he of course shot that shot that was right to Yarbrough, you can see he was holding his hamstring, and that was almost like the end of any sort of playoff hope for the Portland Timbers, and we shall see how serious that hamstring injury is. But I don't know if he is going to come back. And I'm not a doctor, but hamstring injury usually does take at least 2 or 3 weeks to heal with. And knowing the fact that the Timbers do play against either SKC and RSL in the Western Conference Final as soon as next week, yeah, this could be a huge blow for the Timbers' chances of maybe even going deeper into, well, I wouldn't say going deeper in the playoffs. They're already very deep into the playoffs, but maybe going back to MLS Cup for the first time since 2018. But at that point, I'm pretty sure every Timbers fan was maybe even thinking about turning off the TV, because they know what's going to happen. They're not going to win this game without their influence, number 10 in this one. There was another shout for a penalty from Colorado, but this time was not given in the 57th minute. I thought the Timbers really started getting more possession and was kind of in more control in the second half. And they actually almost went up 1-0 if it wasn't for Danny Wilson with a heroic clearance off the line to clear Van Rankin's shot off the line. So we saw earlier how Clark made a big save to deny the Rapids a 1-0 lead. Well, on the other end, the Rapids had their own heroic, and this time it's Danny Wilson clearing that shot off the line. And it wasn't just like any clearance off the line. That was literally on the line where Wilson was able to clear that. If he wasn't there, that was going to be 1-0 in favor of the Portland Timbers. But we stay scoreless at that point. The Rapids, I did think that they did slowly gain back momentum with some reinforcement coming off the bench. But really, as the time kind of winds down, tension started to rise as both teams was kind of going for the winner. And I know they, of course, show the graphics of the fact that, the Timbers have given up some of the most goals in the last 15 minutes of the game, and the Rapids, of course, are the best team in terms of not allowing goals in the last 15 minutes. The thing is that stats is one thing, but I've talked about before where playoffs, stats really doesn't matter. Playoff is a complete different animal, and I also kind of feel like this was really getting to that time, and I think John Strong even mentioned it before, or actually I think it was Stu Holden that kind of mentioned it. Playoff is a different animal where it's all about the experience, and as much as Robin Fraser has been mentioned the fact that his team is definitely ready for the playoff, unlike last year where they weren't prepared. Are they really prepared for this? I mean, this is only the second playoff appearance, and in a game as high pressure as this one is, you just kind of had a feeling that the pressure kind of eventually got to him, and that knowing the fact that the Timbers are one of the most experienced team in the playoffs, I just kind of had a feeling that if there's anybody's going to win this game, it's probably going to be the Portland Timbers, and especially with the way how the second half is, when I thought the Timbers were looking like the more likely ones to get the goal, because again, as I talked about earlier with Colorado, most of their attack is just trying to loft the ball into the box, which again, it's not a bad strategy, but it just gets to a point where I started to feel like they were a little bit one-dimensional in terms of their attack, and it just feels like the Timbers knew what's going to happen, and all they need to do is just make sure those crosses get out of play, make sure there's no Rapids player kind of running toward the back post to head that one in, and overall that's pretty much that they did, and it was pretty easy defending from that point. But in the 83rd minute, Jimmy Chara did try to toe poke it into back post, but missed wide. Dan Yarbrough had to deny Chara, who tried to do a little Randall Leal cross shot and almost tried to replicate what the Timbers did in that meeting against the Rapids at Providence Park. Well, actually, no, trying to give them a little taste of their own medicine, because it was the Rapids, the one that did kind of a Randall Leal cross shot that gave them the lead at that point, but that one was actually tipped over from Yarbrough, and as time winds down, looked like this was going to 30 more minutes of bonus soccer. Lars Mabiela would score in the 90th minute to give the Portland Timbers a 1-0 lead, and this was not great set-piece defending from the Colorado Rapids, and for a team that has been very good in terms of set-piece defending, this was kind of just them letting that ball dangle in the box, and how many times I said, when you let the ball dangle in the box, you don't clear away, you're basically asked to get score, and here in this instance, Mabiela basically just stabbed it in, was the first one to get to the ball to give the Timbers a 1-0 lead. Though the Rapids want to quickly respond, trying to get this one into extra time, but Clark was able to deny Lewis. But as the final whistle was fast approaching, this is when I get to the other point where this win that the Timbers had to move on to the Western Conference Final would also come with a big price, because in the 4th minute of stoppage time, Darren Espria, a guy that I've predicted that he was going to score a goal or assist in this game again. Well, not only the fact that he didn't do that, and unfortunately he let me down with the prediction again I made in the preview, but he did the opposite of that. And yeah, I mean, I know this might not be a popular take, and I know Timbers fans are going to be mad at me in the comment section, but I think this was the right call, that Espria gets himself sent off. And yes, Brian Galvan, he did embellish that a little bit, and maybe Espria kind of just touch his face a little bit, and Brian Galvan, as an Argentine, did his classic Argentine kind of move, trying to kind of embellish a little bit, trying to get Espria sent off, and it kind of worked out, because the red card came out, and as much as I know a lot of people are going to say that this is very soft, and that Galvan, in some way, he probably should have also got a yellow card for being kind of like a crybaby there. Anytime when you put your hands in an opponent's face, that's a red card. And in that sequence, even though Espria, he didn't really graze Galvan a little bit, he put his hands in the face of an opponent. And at the end of the day, I think you can also say that Espria, he didn't need to do that moment. Like, this is also where we've seen this before this season in the playoffs, and really most of the playoff game, where the losing team are always going to be the one that's going to be the more hotly tempered side, because they know that they of course lost, and some will say that they're being a little bit of a sore loser, but they're kind of frustrated that the season is going to come to an end, so they decided to kind of maybe lash out one more time, maybe get into the head of the winning team, and in this case, that's what the Rapids did. And this time the Timbers actually, the Timbers unfortunately was not the benefit of this, and that Asprilla just, in a moment where he didn't really need to lash out or anything, and in some way it's kind of inexcusable too, because this is literally the last second. You're gonna win the game. The last thing you need to do is just do something really stupid, and yeah, there you go. He did something really stupid there to get himself sent off, and now heading into that Western Conference final, and despite the fact that Timbers get a playoff upset in this game against the Rapids, they're going to be without two of their most important player in the playoff, in Sebastian Blanco and Darren Asprilla. And, I will say that, we'll see how things are going to go, because, again, we've seen before where even when teams don't have their strongest player, they're still able to prevail in the end. But you can't tell me in a straight face says that the Portland Timbers are going to be favorites heading into the next game, regardless if they're playing against Sporting KC or RSL, because those are two really important pieces that they're going to be missing in this game, and that now they're just going to have to kind of dig deep if they're able to move on into MLS Cup. And in some way I hope so, because as much as they keep my hopes in terms of my prediction of predicting this team to go to the MLS Cup final, that task of potentially do that, or even winning the whole damn thing, just got a lot tougher with the way that they're going to be missing those two key players heading into the playoffs. But nevertheless, I think they'll kind of worry about that as the days of the Western Conference final is going to happen next week. But for the Colorado Rapids, yeah, what a disappointing way to finish the season, and in a way where this was just another game where I just think that they just did not have that playoff experience yet, and that I know a lot of people are going to immediately say that the Rapids were complete fraud, and that they probably are going to admit that they got that number 1 seed by accident. But for me, I'm still going to defend the Rapids and said that I don't think they got there by accident. I think it takes a lot to try to get that number 1 seed, and so far this season the Rapids have always found a way to of course get that win. But unfortunately in the playoffs we've seen this before, and I think many people have said it before. You just need to have that difference maker, and you need that star player to come through in a time where that you really need him the most. And for the Rapids, unfortunately, they just don't have that player. And when you don't have that kind of players, it can be tough to try to move on into the next round. But nevertheless, I think for the Rapids, I don't think there should be any shame in terms of how their season is. It's been an incredible season for them, but it's another learning curve that maybe they're not ready yet in terms of making the next step, and that next season, I guess expectation will continue to be bigger for this team. But also I think this might be another game where it might be a lesson for them to know that yes, they have been able to make some of these good signing, bring some of these players that kind of as an afterthought and kind of work out for the Rapids. But I think at the end of the day, they probably need to learn that they need to have that star player, and need to have that difference maker in the playoffs so they can get over the hump. But as now, as I said, for the Timbers, they'll be happy. They're moving on to the next round, and we'll see how they're going to deal in that Western Conference final, especially if they are going to be playing against Sporting KC. There's no doubt that they're not going to be the favorites in that one. But that being said, that could also be a good matchup with the way that I like to see a rematch of the 2018 Western Conference final this year. But at the same time, I also would love to see the Timbers and RSL again, where as much as I know some people will say that that's a very mismatch because the Timbers have absolutely destroyed RSL this regular season. Remember, regular season matches doesn't really matter when we get to playoffs. And playoffs, it's just a complete different animal to see. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this game. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.